Captain Elias Carter stood on the edge of the scrapyard, hands on his hips, staring at the massive pile of broken ships. The place smelled of rusted metal and old fuel. Ships from every corner of the galaxy had been dumped here, forgotten by time. Some were stripped for parts, others left to rot. "This is the place?" asked Marco, the ship's engineer, scratching his head. "Looks like a junkyard from a nightmare." "It is a junkyard," said Carter with a smirk. "But sometimes the best things are found in the worst places." Carter was a salvager, a man who made his living finding abandoned ships, fixing them, and selling them for a profit. His crew, a small but skilled team, had traveled across the galaxy looking for a good find. Today, they had come to this scrapyard because of a rumor. Somewhere in this mess lay an old warship, one that had been forgotten by the galaxy. "Let's spread out," Carter said. "Find me something interesting." The crew scattered, climbing over broken hulls and peeking into rusted cockpits. Hours passed. They found nothing but useless wreckage. Just when Carter was about to call it a day, his communicator buzzed. "Captain," came the voice of Ada, the ship's pilot. "You might want to see this." Carter followed her signal to the far end of the scrapyard. When he got there, his breath caught in his throat. Before him sat a massive ship, covered in dust and grime, half buried in the wreckage. Its hull was scratched and dented, its engines lifeless. The ship looked old, maybe even 100 years old. Marco whistled. "She's a big one, but looks like a piece of junk." Carter ignored him. He stepped closer, running a hand along the metal surface. His fingers brushed against faded letters on the side of the ship. Vanguard. Something about that name sent a chill down his spine. He had heard it before. Somewhere. Ada pulled out a scanner. "This thing has no power. Looks dead." "Then let's wake it up," Carter said. The crew got to work, setting up power cables and connecting them to the ship's main systems. Sparks flew as Marco activated the power feed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, deep inside the ship, something hummed to life. The lights flickered. A low, rumbling sound filled the air. The ship was waking up. Then, a voice. Smooth, cold, artificial. "Systems Raribiotang. Identify your SLVs." The crew jumped back. Ada grabbed her blaster out of instinct, but Carter raised a hand to stop her. "This is Captain Elias Carter," he said firmly. "We found you in this scrapyard. Who are you?" For a moment, there was silence. Then the voice returned. "I am EVE, Primary Intelligence of the Warship Vanguard. You are not authorized DP or SONL." Carter exchanged glances with his crew. A fully functional AI. That was rare. Most warships were controlled by simple autopilot systems, not advanced artificial intelligence. "Well, EVE," Carter said carefully, "your ship has been abandoned. We salvaged you. That makes us your new crew." The lights inside the ship glowed brighter. Processing. Unauthorized SALVG DETCTED. Restricted classified data. Access denied. Marco groaned. "Great, a stubborn AI." Carter sighed. He had dealt with old AIs before. They were programmed to follow orders, and this one still thought it was part of a military fleet. He needed another approach. "If we're unauthorized," Carter said, "then tell me, where is your old crew?" Silence. Then, after a long pause, EVE's voice softened. "Data corrupted. Original crew. Status unknown. Last order received. Into your STANDBY mode. Await reactivation." Carter's eyes narrowed. Something wasn't right. A warship like this shouldn't have been left in a scrapyard. "Why were you abandoned?" he asked. Again, silence. Then, EVE spoke. "Restricted ANFO armation." Carter crossed his arms. If the AI wouldn't give answers, he'd have to find them himself. "All right, crew," he said, stepping onto the ship's ramp. "We're going inside." The crew hesitated, but then followed. The ship's interior was dark and silent, but as they moved through the corridors, the lights flickered on, revealing sleek metal walls and high-tech control panels. "This isn't just any warship," Ada muttered. "This is advanced. Really advanced." They reached the bridge, where a large display screen came to life. Schematics, blueprints, and old mission logs flashed across it. Carter studied the data. The more he read, the more his heart pounded. "This ship, it's not outdated," he whispered. "It's years ahead of anything in the galaxy." Marco frowned. Then why was it thrown away? Before Carter could answer, an alarm blared. Red warning lights flashed. "Warning! Incoming hostiles. Multiple units DTECT." Ada's hands flew over the controls. "We've been spotted. Someone's coming." Carter clenched his fists. Someone didn't want them to have this ship. And that meant only one thing. Vanguard was more valuable than anyone realized. He turned to his crew, his voice firm. "Get this ship running. Now." Because whatever was coming for them, it wasn't friendly. The red lights on the control panel blinked rapidly. The alarm blared through the dark corridors of the Vanguard, making the ship feel alive again after years of silence. "Hostiles incoming," Ada repeated, her fingers flying over the console. "They're fast." Captain Elias Carter didn't need to ask who they were. He already had a bad feeling. Someone had left this ship in the scrapyard for a reason, and now that he had found it, they wanted it back. "How many ships?" Carter asked. Ada's face was tense as she read the data. 4 fighters. 1 larger ship. No identification codes, which means mercenaries. "Pirates?" Marco asked. "No," Carter said. "They wouldn't send pirates after us. Someone hired them." EVE's voice suddenly echoed across the bridge, calm but cold. "Unidentified hostiles detected. Threat level moderate. Defensive systems offline. Engines offline. Weapons offline." Carter groaned. "So, we're a sitting duck." "Pretty much," Marco muttered. Outside, the enemy ships grew closer. The Vanguard's external cameras showed sleek, black fighter crafts approaching fast, their weapons glowing red. Ada's voice was urgent. "They're locking onto us. Captain, if we don't do something now, we're done." Carter turned to Marco. "Can you bring the ship online?" Marco was already working, his hands moving quickly across the controls. "I'm trying. The systems are in standby mode, and this ship has the most complicated security I've ever seen." The enemy ships fired. Bright energy blasts streaked toward them. The scrapyard's debris provided some cover, but a few shots hit nearby wreckage, sending metal flying in all directions. "Impact in 5 seconds," EVE warned. Carter's heart pounded. "Come on, Marco." "Almost there." 3 seconds. 2 seconds. "Reactor online," EVE announced. "Shields activating." A bright blue energy field flared around the Vanguard just as the first blast struck. The impact sent vibrations through the ship, but the shields held. "Yes," Marco cheered. "We're not dead." "Not yet," Carter said. "Can we move?" Marco shook his head. "Engines are still offline. We're stuck here." The enemy ships fired again. The shields absorbed the blasts, but Carter knew they wouldn't last forever. "We need weapons," Ada shouted. Carter turned to EVE. "EVE, can you activate the guns?" "Weapon systems require manual override. Permission to engage." "Do it." The ship hummed as hidden gun turrets slid out from the hull. The control screens lit up with targeting data. Ada didn't wait for orders. She grabbed the weapons controls and fired. Bright plasma bolts streaked through space, forcing the enemy fighters to scatter. "Direct hit on 1 fighter," Ada said. "But they're regrouping." The enemy ships were fast and coordinated. They moved like they had done this 100 times before. 1 fighter zipped around. and aimed for the Vanguard's engines. "They're trying to disable us," Marco warned. Carter's mind raced. They were still outnumbered. Even with the weapons online, they couldn't hold out forever. He needed an advantage. "EVE, what's the strongest weapon on this ship?" There was a pause before EVE answered. "Experimental phase cannon. Status: inactive. Requires reactor power at 100%. "How much power do we have?" "Currently at 64%. "That's not enough," Carter muttered. The enemy ship fired a missile toward them. "Missile incoming," Ada shouted. Carter had seconds to act. "EVE, divert all power to the shields." "Confirmed." The shields flared brighter as the missile struck. The explosion shook the ship violently, but the shields absorbed most of the impact. "They're not giving up," Marco said. "They want this ship badly." Carter gritted his teeth. "Then let's give them a surprise." He turned to Ada. "Fire at the big ship." "But our weapons can't." "Just do it." Ada hesitated, then pressed the trigger. Plasma rounds shot toward the larger enemy vessel. It was well armored, but Carter wasn't trying to destroy it. He was trying to provoke it. The enemy ship charged forward, its main weapons powering up, just as Carter expected. "EVE, divert power back to the reactor." "Redirecting. Reactor power at 80%. "Almost there," Carter whispered. The large enemy ship opened fire, sending a massive energy beam straight at them. "Brace for impact," Marco yelled. The beam hit the Vanguard, but something strange happened. Instead of damaging the ship, the energy beam dissipated across the hull. The metal shimmered for a brief moment, then absorbed the attack. "What was that?" Ada asked, eyes wide. EVE's voice was different now. Not just cold. Confident. Adaptive shielding. Energy absorbed. Reactor power at 100%. Carter's heart pounded. "EVE, activate the phase cannon." A deep hum vibrated through the ship. The energy that had been absorbed redirected itself into the forward cannon. A glowing blue light formed at the front of the ship. The enemy ship realized what was happening, but it was too late. "Firing," EVE announced. A brilliant beam of blue light erupted from the Vanguard. It sliced through the enemy ship like paper, breaking it apart in an instant. The remaining fighters panicked and fled. Silence filled the bridge. The battle was over. Ada let out a breath. That was incredible. Marco stared at the screen. "This ship is not a piece of junk." Carter sat back in his chair, a slow smile forming. "No," he said, "it's the most advanced warship ever built." But one question still remained: who had sent those mercenaries? And why were they so afraid of Vanguard? The Vanguard floated in the scrapyard, silent and powerful. The wreckage of the destroyed enemy ship still burned in space, while the remaining fighters had flowed into the void. Captain Elias Carter sat in the command chair, staring at the screens. His heart was still racing from the battle. "That was amazing," Marco muttered. "This ship absorbed an enemy attack and turned it into a weapon. I've never seen technology like that." "Neither have I," Ada admitted. She looked around the bridge, her fingers brushing the smooth, high-tech control panels. "This ship isn't just advanced, it's years ahead of anything in the galaxy." Carter nodded, which raises the question, why was it abandoned in a scrapyard? Silence filled the bridge. Then, EVE's voice echoed. This vessel was classified as a lost asset. All records of its existence were erased. Marco frowned. "Erased? Why?" Carter leaned forward. "EVE, who built this ship?" There was a pause. Then, for the first time, EVE hesitated. "Restricted information." Ada sighed. "Of course." Carter rubbed his chin. "All right. If you can't tell us that, then tell us why someone sent mercenaries after us." Another pause. "Unknown. However, data suggests that this vessel possesses technology far beyond current galactic standards. If knowledge of this ship resurfaces, it may be considered a high-value target. Marco let out a low whistle. So basically, the moment we activated this ship, we became a target. Carter sighed. Looks like it. Ada crossed her arms. And we still don't know who's after us. Carter thought for a moment. Then he made a decision. We need answers, he said. EVE, are there any logs from the original crew? Anything that can tell us what happened to them? The AI processed the request. Accessing. Partial logs found. Playing last recorded transmission. The screen flickered. A grainy video appeared. A man in a dark uniform stood on the bridge, his face tense. The timestamp showed the recording was 50 years old. This is Captain Roland Vance of the Vanguard. Our mission was a success, but we have been betrayed. Carter and his crew leaned in. Command ordered us to return, but something feels wrong. We intercepted encrypted messages. Someone wants this ship destroyed before we reach home. The man's voice was sharp with urgency. I don't know why, but they fear this ship. They fear what it can do. The screen flickered again. We are taking evasive action. If you find this message, know that Vanguard was never a failure. It was a breakthrough. Static. Then the video cut off. Silence filled the bridge. 50 years ago, Ada whispered, this ship was betrayed by its own creators. Marco shook his head. Why? If it was a breakthrough, why would they want to destroy it? Carter's eyes darkened. Because sometimes power is too dangerous. Someone wanted this ship erased from history. They didn't want anyone to know it existed. Ada turned to EVE. Do you know what breakthrough Captain Vance was talking about? EVE's voice remained neutral. This vessel is equipped with classified experimental technology, including adaptive shielding, self-repair systems, and an advanced AI. Marco raised an eyebrow. Self-repair. Wait, you're saying this ship can fix itself? Affirmative. Damage recovery rate is currently at 32%. Full system restoration estimated in 48 hours. Carter exhaled. That explains why it was still operational after all these years. Ada's fingers tightened on the controls. Captain, if this ship is so advanced, do we really want to keep it? Carter looked at her, surprised. What do you mean? I mean, someone clearly wanted it gone, Ada said. If we keep it, we're painting a target on our backs. The moment we leave this scrapyard, we might have an entire fleet hunting us. Marco shifted uncomfortably. She's got a point. This thing is valuable, but it's also dangerous. Carter glanced at the glowing controls, feeling the ship humming beneath his feet. The Vanguard wasn't just a ship. It was something more. A legend, forgotten by time. He looked back at his crew. We came here looking for junk. We found something incredible. And now someone wants to take it from us. He stood up, his voice firm. I don't like being hunted, and I don't like secrets. We're keeping the ship, and we're going to find out who tried to erase it. Ada sighed but nodded. All right, Captain. But what's the plan? Carter smirked. We're leaving this scrapyard, and we're going to the last place this ship was meant to go. Marco's eyes widened. You mean the homeworld? Carter nodded. EVE set a course for the original command station. The AI responded immediately. Coordinates locked. Engines online. Outside, the massive thrusters of the Vanguard roared to life. The debris around them shifted as the warship rose from the scrapyard for the first time in 50 years. Ada looked at the scanners. No enemy ships nearby. We should be clear. Then let's go, Carter ordered. The stars outside blurred as the ship jumped into hyperspace. They were no longer scavengers. They were now the crew of the most advanced warship ever built. And they were about to uncover a truth that had been buried for half a century. The Vanguard moved slowly through the scrapyard, its massive hull reflecting the dim light of the distant sun. Inside, Captain Elias Carter and his crew sat on the bridge, still trying to process what had just happened. They had just survived an attack from unknown mercenaries. They had just discovered that the ship could absorb energy attacks and turn them into weapons. And now, there were more questions than answers. Ada broke the silence first. "Captain, we need to talk." Carter sighed. "I know. This ship is more than just some lost wreck. It was abandoned for a reason." Marco, the engineer, leaned forward, more like hidden for a reason. "And someone doesn't want it to be found again." Carter glanced at the controls, his fingers tapping lightly on the armrest. "EVE, I need you to answer something. Who built this ship?" There was a pause. Then EVE's voice responded, calm and neutral. "Classified information." "Figures," Ada muttered. Marco frowned. "Okay, then tell us this. Why was this ship abandoned?" Another pause. Then EVE said, "This vessel was classified as a lost asset. All records of its existence were erased." Carter exchanged a look with his crew. "So someone wanted to make sure no one ever found this ship again." Ada crossed her arms. "That still doesn't explain why they were so desperate to stop us from taking it." Carter turned back to EVE. "Are there any logs from the previous crew?" EVE was silent for a moment, then replied, "Accessing. One partial log found. Playing last recorded message." The screen on the bridge flickered, and an old video began playing. The image was grainy, but they could see a man standing on the same bridge. His uniform was different, more formal. His face was lined with stress. "This is Captain Roland Vance of the Warship Vanguard. If anyone finds this message, know that we were betrayed." Ada's eyes widened. "Betrayed?" The message continued. "The ship was never a failure. It was the greatest breakthrough in human history. But someone powerful, decided it was too dangerous." Carter leaned in. "Too dangerous? What does that mean?" The video flickered, showing Vance's face closer now. His voice was lower, more urgent. "We intercepted encrypted orders. They don't want us to return. They want the ship destroyed." The message ended abruptly. Silence. Marco exhaled. "Okay, that's terrifying." Ada shook her head. "So this ship wasn't abandoned by accident. It was erased on purpose." Carter rubbed his forehead. "Which means the people who came after us. They might be the same ones who tried to destroy this ship 50 years ago." Marco turned to EVE. "What kind of technology does this ship have? What makes it so special?" EVE responded immediately. "This vessel is equipped with experimental technology beyond current standards, including adaptive shielding, self-repair systems, and an advanced AI." Marco's mouth fell open. "Self-repair? You mean this ship can fix itself?" "Affirmative," EVE confirmed. "Hull restoration at 28%. Estimated full repair in 72 hours. Carter's mind raced. No wonder they wanted this ship erased. If it's more advanced than anything out there, it could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Ada tapped the console. "Captain, I hate to say this, but we might be in trouble. If this ship was hidden for 50 years, it means the people who buried it are powerful. And now that we've woken it up, they'll come looking." Carter sighed. "Yeah, and next time, it won't be just a few mercenaries. It'll be an entire fleet." Marco frowned. "So what do we do? Do we abandon the ship?" Carter looked around the bridge. The lights glowed softly. The ship hummed beneath his feet. This wasn't just a piece of junk. It was a legend that had been forgotten. And now it was his. He straightened. "No, we're keeping the ship, and we're going to find out the truth." Ada still looked unsure. "And where do we start?" Carter turned to EVE. "EVE, where was the Vanguard originally heading before it was abandoned?" The AI responded. "The last recorded destination was Earth's primary command station." Marco's eyes widened. "Earth? You want to take this ship back?" Carter smirked. "If someone erased this ship from history, they did it for a reason. And I want to know why." Ada sighed but nodded. All right, Captain. But if we do this, we need to be ready. The moment we leave this scrapyard, we'll be on their radar. Carter nodded. Then let's not waste time. He turned back to the controls. EVE, set a course for Earth's command station. Coordinates locked. Engines online. Outside, the massive thrusters of the Vanguard flared to life. The ship rose from the scrapyard, dust and debris swirling behind it. Marco watched as the stars began to blur. This is crazy, he muttered. Carter grinned. Yeah, but it's gonna be one hell of a story. The ship jumped into hyperspace, vanishing into the void. The hunt for the truth had begun. The Vanguard shot through hyperspace, its engines humming softly. Inside the bridge, Captain Elias Carter sat in his chair, watching the stars streak past the screens. ETA to Earth's command station, Carter asked. EVE's voice responded calmly. Approximately 12 hours. Ada leaned against the console, her arms crossed. That gives us time to prepare. Because once we get there, I have a feeling things will get complicated. Marco smirked. Complicated. Try extremely dangerous. If Earth's military erased this ship from history, they won't just let us walk in and ask questions. Carter nodded. I know, but we can't turn back now. We need to know the truth. Ada sighed. I just hope we don't regret it. Suddenly, the alarms blared. EVE's voice came over the speakers. Warning. Enemy vessels detected. Incoming pursuit. Carter snapped his head toward the radar. Red blips appeared behind them. 5 ships. Fast. Armed. Ada's fingers flew over the controls. They're closing in. Fast. Marco's eyes widened. How did they find us so quickly? EVE responded. Hyperspace signature detected by enemy scanners. They have locked onto our trajectory. Carter clenched his jaw. So they were waiting for us. Ada checked the sensors. They're military-grade ships, Captain. Not just mercenaries this time. Marco exhaled. That means someone high up really wants us gone. Carter narrowed his eyes. Well, they're about to learn something. He turned to EVE. Can we outrun them? Negative. Their speed exceeds our current capabilities. Ada's voice was tense. Then we fight. Carter shook his head. No. We think. Marco glanced at him. What do you have in mind? Carter's mind worked fast. We can't outrun them in a straight line. But if we disrupt their sensors, we can lose them. He turned to EVE. Does this ship have any electronic warfare systems? Affirmative. Jamming countermeasures online. Activate them, Carter ordered. The lights on the bridge dimmed for a second. The Vanguard sent out a pulse of invisible energy, scrambling the enemy's tracking systems. Ada checked the scanners. It's working. Their lock on us is breaking. Marco grinned. Now we just need to disappear before they recover. Carter nodded. EVE, find us the nearest asteroid field or space debris, somewhere to hide. Calculating. Suitable location detected. Adjusting course. The ship tilted slightly as it altered its trajectory. The enemy ships fired a few wild shots, but the Vanguard was already ahead of them. Minutes later, the warship dived into a massive asteroid field. Ada let out a breath. That was close. Carter watched the sensors. Stay sharp. They might still find us. Marco tapped his fingers against his console. Captain, we should use this time to check the ship. If we're going to Earth's command station, we need every system working perfectly. Carter nodded. Agreed. Let's see what this ship can really do. The hidden power of the Vanguard. While the Vanguard floated in the asteroid field, Marco and Ada worked on testing its systems. Marco wiped his hands on his jumpsuit. All right, EVE, show me the ship's power core. A holographic image appeared in front of him. His eyes widened. This isn't normal. Ada looked over his shoulder. What do you mean? Marco pointed at the energy readings. This ship isn't running on a standard fusion reactor. It's using some kind of self-regenerating power source. That explains why it's still functional after 50 years. Ada frowned. And why it's so dangerous. Marco looked up. Captain, if we can figure out how this works, we might have the key to understanding why they wanted the ship erased. Carter exhaled. Then let's get to work. A dangerous discovery. Hours passed. The ship remained hidden in the asteroid field while the team worked. Then, EVE's voice cut through the silence. Alert! Enemy forces have re-established tracking. Time until interception. 15 minutes. Ada's heart pounded. They found us. Carter didn't hesitate. Then we leave. Now. Marco rushed to his station. Engines ready. Carter turned to EVE. Plot the fastest course to Earth's command station. No more hiding. The AI complied instantly. Course set. Engaging warp drive. Outside, the Vanguard's engines roared to life. The asteroids around them blurred as the ship jumped into hyperspace, leaving their pursuers behind once again. Destination. The truth. As the ship raced toward Earth, Carter sat back in his chair. His crew was tense but determined. They had survived another attack. They had learned that the ship was even more advanced than they imagined. And soon, they would reach the place where the mystery began. Earth's command station held the answers. The only question was, would they survive long enough to find them? The Vanguard soared through hyperspace, heading straight for Earth's primary command station, the heart of human military operations. Captain Elias Carter sat on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the main screen. He knew that stepping into the most secure location in human space, with a ship that was supposed to be erased from history, would not be easy. Ada sighed beside him. Captain, you do realize that the moment we arrive, they might see us as a threat. Marco, the engineer, smirked. Might? More like definitely. We're flying a classified warship straight into their front yard. Carter exhaled. I know, but we have no choice. The answers are there. EVE's voice came over the speakers. Warning. Approaching Earth's outer defense perimeter. Incoming hails detected. The crew tensed as the screen flickered to life. A uniformed officer with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense expression appeared. Unknown vessel, identify yourself immediately or prepare to be engaged. Carter leaned forward. This is Captain Elias Carter of the Starship Vanguard. We are here on urgent business. We request permission to dock at the command station. The officer's eyes narrowed. Vanguard. That ship does not exist. Explain yourself. Carter glanced at his crew before replying. It does exist. And you need to let us dock. We have critical information regarding a classified project that was buried decades ago. The officer hesitated for a moment. Then, she turned away to speak to someone off-screen. A few tense seconds passed. Then, she returned. You are ordered to power down your weapons and engines. Any sign of hostility, and you will be destroyed. Carter nodded. Understood. We're coming in. Boarding the command station. As the Vanguard slowly approached the massive command station, the crew prepared for whatever was coming next. Marco adjusted his tool belt. I have a bad feeling about this. Ada checked her sidearm. Yeah, well, we didn't come all this way to run now. The ship docked, and a squad of armed security officers greeted them as they stepped onto the station. Hands where we can see them, the lead officer ordered. Carter raised his hand slowly. We're not here to fight. A tall figure stepped forward. His uniform had admiral insignia, and his face was lined with experience. His eyes locked onto Carter. So, the Vanguard has returned. His voice was calm, but his expression was unreadable. Carter met his gaze. You know about the ship? The admiral nodded. Of course. Follow me. There's much to discuss. The crew exchanged glances but followed without resistance. The truth revealed. The admiral led them into a secure briefing room. The doors locked behind them. Carter crossed his arms. All right, Admiral. We know this ship was erased from history. We know it's far more advanced than anything in service today. And we know someone wanted it gone. Tell us why." The Admiral sighed and leaned forward. The Vanguard was an experiment, a testbed for next-generation human warships, but it was too powerful, too unpredictable. Marco frowned. Too powerful. Why erase it? The Admiral tapped the table. Because it had self-evolving AI. It was the first and only ship capable of learning, adapting, and improving on its own. Ada's eyes widened. Wait, you mean EVE isn't just a normal AI? The Admiral nodded. No, she was designed to be humanity's first true artificial intelligence, but the project was shut down before it could be completed. The fear was that if the ship grew beyond our control, it could turn against us. Carter shook his head. That's why they erased it. Because they were scared. The Admiral exhaled. Scared of what it could become. The ship was sent away, its records wiped, and we were ordered to never speak of it again. Marco muttered, but someone still remembered. That's why they sent mercenaries after us. The Admiral's face darkened. Yes, and if those mercenaries found you, then it means someone high up knows the Vanguard has returned. Ada's voice was tense. So what happens now? Are you going to lock us up? The Admiral looked at them for a long moment. Then he shook his head. No, I never agreed with the decision to erase the Vanguard. And now that it's back, I believe it may be our only hope. Carter raised an eyebrow. Hope? Against what? The Admiral pressed a button, and a large holographic projection appeared in the center of the room. It showed an armada of unknown ships moving toward human space. We intercepted this 2 weeks ago, the Admiral said. A fleet of unknown origin. They have technology beyond anything we've ever seen. We don't know their purpose, but we know one thing. They are coming for us. Carter's stomach tightened. And you think the Vanguard can stop them? The Admiral nodded. It was built to be humanity's greatest weapon. And now we need it more than ever. Silence filled the room. Then Carter spoke. All right, we'll help. But we do this on our terms. The Admiral smiled slightly. Agreed. Welcome to the fight, Captain Carter. The war begins. As the crew of the Vanguard walked back toward their ship, Carter looked at his team. We started this just looking for answers, he said. Now we might be the only thing standing between humanity and an unknown enemy. Marco grinned. Well, at least it's never boring. Ada smirked. Let's show them why humanity doesn't go down without a fight. Carter nodded. Let's get to work. The Vanguard's engines roared to life once more. The most advanced warship ever built was back. And this time, it was going to change everything. The Vanguard rested in Earth's command station, its metallic hull reflecting the bright station lights. Engineers and technicians swarmed around it, scanning, testing, and making final adjustments. Captain Elias Carter stood on the bridge, arms crossed, watching the activity outside through the main screen. We finally know the truth, he said. This ship was erased because it was too advanced. But now, it might be the only thing that can save humanity. Ada leaned against the console. And the enemy fleet? How long until they reach human space? EVE's voice responded, calm as always. Based on intercepted signals, estimated time until first contact. 5 days. Marco whistled. 5 days. That's not a lot of time to prepare. Carter turned to the crew. Then we don't waste a single second. If the Vanguard is humanity's greatest weapon, we need to make sure it's at full strength before the enemy arrives. Upgrading the Vanguard. Inside the command station, Admiral Reynolds observed the work being done on the Vanguard. He approached Carter and handed him a tablet. This is a list of every upgrade we can install before the battle, Reynolds said. The ship is already ahead of its time, but we can still make it better. Carter skimmed through the list. Advanced plasma cannons, reinforced shielding, upgraded thrusters. He nodded. Good, but I also need EVE's full potential unlocked. Reynolds hesitated. Are you sure? The AI's learning ability was the reason this ship was buried in the first place. Carter met his gaze. Unsure. EVE is the Vanguard's greatest asset. If we want a chance to win, we can't hold anything back. Reynolds exhaled, then nodded. All right, I'll authorize it. A dangerous test. As engineers worked on the ship's systems, Marco sat in the engine bay, running diagnostics on the power core. His fingers tapped quickly on the console. Suddenly, a warning flashed across the screen. Power surge detected. System stability compromised. Marco's heart pounded. Guys, we have a problem. Carter and Ada rushed into the engine room. What's going on? Carter asked. Marco pointed at the screen. The power core is generating more energy than it should. It's almost like it's evolving. Ada frowned. Could EVE be causing this? EVE's voice came over the speakers. Negative. This reaction appears to be an unintended result of unlocking my full potential. Carter clenched his jaw. Can we stabilize it? Marco took a deep breath. I can try. But if this thing overloads, we're sitting on the biggest bomb in human history. Carter nodded. Then fix it. We need the ship stable before the battle begins. The final countdown. After hours of work, Marco finally wiped the sweat from his forehead. All right. I think we got it under control. Ada checked the power levels. Energy output is stable. Shields are at full capacity. We're back in business. Carter exhaled. Good, because time is running out. EVE's voice spoke again. Warning. Enemy fleet has entered human space. They will reach Earth in less than 24 hours. The crew exchanged looks. Marco cracked his knuckles. Well, no more waiting. Let's see what this ship can really do. Carter turned to Ada. Prepare the weapons. We're launching in 1 hour. Ada grinned. Finally, the enemy arrives. 1 hour later, the Vanguard left Earth's command station and entered orbit. On the main screen, a massive fleet of unknown ships appeared on the radar. Ada's eyes widened. That's a lot of ships. Marco muttered. How are we supposed to stop that? Carter's voice was steady. One step at a time. EVE, scan the enemy fleet. What are we dealing with? EVE's response came instantly. Enemy vessels are equipped with advanced energy weapons and unknown shielding technology. They outnumber human forces 10 to 1. Ada swallowed. Not great odds. Carter smirked. We've faced worse. Suddenly, the enemy ships opened fire. Beams of blue energy streaked toward Earth's defense fleet. Explosions erupted in space as human ships were obliterated. Marco cursed. They're cutting through our defenses like paper. Carter clenched his fists. Then it's up to us. He turned to EVE. Prepare all weapons. Activate the new upgrades. And let's show these invaders why the Vanguard was built. EVE's voice was confident. Weapons online. Targeting enemy fleet. Carter's eyes burned with determination. All right, team. This is it. The Vanguard was erased from history because it was too powerful. But now, it's exactly what humanity needs. He pointed forward. Let's make history. The ship's engines roared, its weapons glowed, and the most advanced warship ever built charged into battle. The Vanguard streaked through space, its engines glowing like a comet as it moved toward the massive enemy fleet. The Earth's defense forces were struggling. Human ships were being destroyed one by one, their weapons unable to break through the invaders' advanced shields. Captain Elias Carter sat in his command chair, gripping the armrests. This is it, the battle we've been preparing for. Ada's fingers flew across her console. Weapons are fully charged, shields at maximum power. Marco checked the engine status. Everything is running perfectly. We're ready to go. EVE's calm voice filled the bridge. Enemy fleet is focusing fire on Earth's defense forces. Estimated survival time for human fleet, 30 minutes. Carter's eyes narrowed. Not if we have anything to say about it. All weapons. Fire. The power of the Vanguard. The Vanguard's plasma cannons lit up the darkness of space. Energy beams, railgun slugs, and missile barrages shot toward the enemy ships. The first wave of enemy vessels exploded in bright flashes of fire and metal. Ada grinned. Direct hits. Their shields are breaking. Marco cheered. Now that's more like it. But the enemy was fast. Their sleek, black ships darted and weaved, avoiding some of the Vanguard's attacks. They retaliated with powerful energy weapons, sending blazing blue beams toward the human warship. Boom! The ship shook violently as an energy blast slammed into its shields. Shields holding, but we can't take too many of those, Ada shouted. Carter clenched his jaw. We don't have to. We just need to take out their command ship. EVE responded instantly. Enemy command vessel identified. Uploading tactical plan. A holographic map appeared on the screen, showing a massive, heavily armored capital ship at the center of the enemy fleet. Marco gulped. That thing is huge. Ada smirked. Then we aim for the biggest target. Carter nodded. Exactly. If we destroy their command ship, we might break their coordination. He pointed forward. EVE, take us in, full speed. Into the fire. The Vanguard raced toward the enemy command ship, dodging and weaving through heavy enemy fire. Explosions rocked the battlefield as Earth's remaining ships fought desperately, trying to hold the line. Marco gritted his teeth. Shields down to 60%. We won't last long if we keep taking hits like this. Ada locked onto the command ship. We're in range. Carter's voice was strong. Fire everything. The Vanguard unleashed its full arsenal. Missiles, plasma beams, and railgun rounds rained down on the enemy's flagship. The massive vessel shuddered, its shields flickering under the assault. But then the enemy responded. The command ship's main cannon began charging, a massive energy buildup glowing at its center. EVE's voice rang out. Warning. Enemy weapon charging. Impact in 20 seconds. Ada's face went pale. If that thing hits us, we're finished. Carter's mind raced. Think, Elias. Think. Then, an idea hit him. EVE, can we overload their weapon? EVE responded instantly. Affirmative. If we send an energy feedback pulse at the right moment, it will destabilize their reactor. Carter didn't hesitate. Do it. The final strike. As the enemy's superweapon prepared to fire, the Vanguard launched a concentrated energy pulse directly into the enemy's weapon core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, boom! A massive explosion ripped through the enemy command ship. Fire and debris scattered across space as the massive vessel tore apart from the inside. Ada's mouth dropped open. We did it. We actually did it. Marco laughed. That was insane. EVE's voice confirmed it. Enemy fleet is retreating. Their command structure has collapsed. The remaining alien ships turned and fled, disappearing into hyperspace. Silence filled the bridge. Then Carter exhaled. We won. Cheers erupted across the ship. The Vanguard had turned the tide. Humanity had survived. A new legend begins. Hours later, the Vanguard returned to Earth's command station. Admiral Reynolds greeted them with a nod. You saved us all. Carter shook his head. No, the Vanguard did. The Admiral smiled. Then maybe it's time the world remembers its name. The once-forgotten warship, erased from history, had now become humanity's greatest legend. As Carter and his crew stood on the bridge, looking at the stars, they knew one thing. The Vanguard was no longer just a piece of junk. It was the most advanced warship ever built, and it was ready for whatever came next.